Okay, let's have a look on how you actually use iiRDS, because this has been very theoretical so far. When we designed iiRDS, we said we don't want to define a vocabulary that people won't use or that is too academic. We actually want to only define and standardize metadata that is actually needed in the world of technical communication. So we started from scenarios that are usual scenarios in the technical communication world and defined personas for that. And one of the scenarios where you need smart content is when you're a service technician. If you have a scheduled maintenance in your plant or on your machine, and you only want to find information that is related to that maintenance work. When you use iiRDS, you need to decide which of the metadata classes and the metadata objects you want to use for your company. So we usually do not recommend to use all the classes and all the objects. We just recommend to use the selected things that you need because you have specific product variants, documentation variants, and because you have people searching your information. And a good way of finding the metadata that you need is actually thinking about such scenarios. When do people need information and which people need the information? So if we go back to this scenario, as a service technician, if you want descriptions of maintenance work, you actually only need 3 types of metadata. You need the component that is maintained, it could also be a machine, but the component or the product. Then you need the product lifecycle phase maintenance, and you are probably looking for task-oriented information because it's a maintenance task that you have to do. And this enables you to find one or more information units, topics or fragments or even documents that are equipped with this metadata. And if in these information unit there's also information about, say, tools that you need or spare parts or planning on working times, the application that gives you those topics, the information, can actually also assemble this metadata and give you maybe a list of spare parts, maybe a list of tools that you need to take with you, and maybe also indicate how much time you need to actually do the work. Another scenario is the fault case. So you do have an error, there's an event in the machine, and you get notified on that, and you want to see how you can remedy the error so that you can put the system back into operation without losing any data or without being electrocuted. So the metadata that you would need in that case to find the right topic, the right instruction, would be again the component which has shown the error, then the event code, of course, like an error code, and you probably need information of type troubleshooting. So you see, for the scenarios that you have, you probably just need a handful of metadata, and we strongly suggest to start with that, with very few metadata classes. Another indication of which metadata to use is, of course, which metadata you already have in your content. So you can just say, okay, I'm using now 15 classes for my iiRDS, but you don't have content for that. That doesn't make sense. So that needs to go hand in hand, the content delivery requirements and the potential that your content has or future content will have. So if you use iiRDS, you need to extend it. There is no project that we do that doesn't have an extension to iiRDS, and this is because of the extension points that I showed you: product variants, components, skill level, also classes like confidentiality, and iiRDS is open to that. You can either, I'll show that in the ontology maybe. You can either create subclasses here. For instance, you could, in the administrative metadata, you could create a subclass for confidentiality level. So this is for internal use only, this is for partners, this is for customers. And in the product metadata, of course, you could create, for example, own lifecycle phases, because you say for you also want to have something like planning here in the design and realization phase. There are a lot of engineers who actually need to have information for planning how to assemble a plant or a specific machine. So this is a specific product lifecycle phase. And it fits into design and realization, so you would have a new object or instance here in this class. So this is what you do. You create custom objects or custom subclasses within the iiRDS classes. If you use more advanced tools, like semantic tools, you can also link the iiRDS metadata to other ontologies like product ontologies. So this is an example of an extension from the iiRDS sample content. I talked about the fans, and this is the product variant T5, and it has several components like the rotor unit, and the rotor unit has subcomponents like the drive and the rotor itself. So this is a very typical extension for iiRDS. You need this, and I wanted to give an example of that. If you have information, for example, for troubleshooting, and which information to select and which fits your user actually depends, or the product, on which product properties the product has. So there maybe our T5 has rotors that run on that have a power consumption unit with 40 watt or 60 watt. And the troubleshooting is different depending on this product property. So how do you find the right topic when you say, okay, I've got this error code, and I know I find the troubleshooting, but these are two topics. One refers to 40, one to 60. Do I show both, or which one is the right one? So to cover such a scenario, you would extend iiRDS and model the product properties 60 and 40, and define a new relation that a specific information unit, in this case a topic, refers to a specific product property. This is why you need extensions. So as I said, to decide which metadata you actually need, there is no standard way, and iiRDS does not decide how you derive the metadata that you need. But there are some sources that you can use, and one is, of course, your existing content management system, where you probably have a lot of variant information already, and you can use that. Then you have metadata that can be easily derived from your XML structures, like the topic types. Then you need to take a look at the functions that you want to provide in your content delivery application, and the requirements of your users. What do they want to search for? Do they need search facets, for example? And then this is a good way of finding the right metadata. So some useful questions when you want to define which metadata to use from iiRDS, or which extensions you need, are the following. When do the users actually need the content? Think of the user doing a journey. They search for the right product, then they acquire the product, then they buy it, transport it to their location, then they take it into operation, and they use it, maintain it, and at some point in time they dispose it. So at these stations in their user journey, they need different types of information, and you can use metadata from the product lifecycle phases to actually tag content for each part of the journey. Then there's the question, who needs the content? Do you have content for specific skill levels, for specific roles, professional roles? Is there confidentiality involved? If so, use the classes from the functional metadata. Then what kind of information do the users need? Is it related to specific actions or events? Or is it for specific scenarios like troubleshooting or diagnosis? Then you should use the iiRDS information types and functional metadata. And last but not least, is the information relevant for a specific component or product variant? Then you have to use and extend the iiRDS product metadata. So this is how you find the metadata that you need for your content. And Holger was so kind as to allow me to show something that we did for Danfoss. So even if you decide not to use the iiRDS package format, you can still use the vocabulary as a template whenever you do a content re-engineering or restructuring. If you plan to go into content delivery, if you plan to go into a new component content management system, take iiRDS, use the classes as a template. And we did this with Danfoss, and I will switch to the mind map. So we do have a mind map that is based on the iiRDS classes, and I just wanted to show a short example. And then we analyzed the requirements. What do we have in the CCMS? What is required by the content delivery? What comes from the product metadata? And then we decided, okay, this is probably the metadata that we are going to need. And here you see, for instance, the Danfoss specific roles and skill levels that we decided to use, and that will be implemented in the component content management system. So this is another way of actually using iiRDS as a blueprint for your metadata model. Okay, any questions regarding on how to use iiRDS before we get to the tools?
We do have a question in the chat box. Do I have to use numbers for each component, 42, for example, or is it possible to use component names or part numbers?
Yeah, the 42 is from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's just an example here. You can use whatever you want. I think that the iiRDS does not specify how to identify components because it's just an extension point in iiRDS, but from the projects that we do, we either get names or actually really numbers from part management system, from SAP, or from a product information management system.